Welcome to the tea table. I am so happy you have joined me today. And yes, we're in a special, another celebration. Last Sunday night was the beginning of Rosh Hashanah, the Jewish New Year. And I'm wearing bright colors, the blues, reds, golds. I love these colors. They remind me of the colors of the tabernacle: red, purple, blue, and gold. And you know the primary colors are red, blue, and gold. And then you combine the blue and the red, you get purple. I am so happy you've joined me today. I've had a big morning. How is your day going? I hope it's going well. Well, I thought I have to talk a little bit about the end of September, which is today, the 30th, and looking on now to October. And it is called in the Jewish calendar, starting with Rosh Hashanah, the New Year, the 10 days of awe. And it means we look up to God with awe. And we think upon Him, and it's a time of reflection, like a sila. You know, a sila means pause and think of that. It's in the Psalms. It's a time to reflect and to look at our lives, and if there's something needs to be changed, to change it, and to ask God for help. And it is a very positive, beautiful time. And then it will go into Yom Kippur, and then the Feast of the Tabernacles. So all of September is a big celebration. And we also are having Oktoberfest. Yes, I love Oktoberfest. I love all the celebrations. And I like to put on a beautiful German costume and go to Leavenworth and see the dancing and the singing in the streets. And I lit my fire today for you. This is I'm calling this the first lighting. I'll move over so you can see. It was a chill in the air this morning that caused me to do that. And it's a wonderful day for hot, brisk tea. And I thought this little tea set, it's very little. It has 6 cups and saucers. So we're going to have a true tea party today. And I have the 1 cup. Now, if you haven't gotten your tea yet, please pause, get your tea, and I'll be waiting for you. Well, this pot is gold. It's a varied color of gold, black, and white. And I just think September and the Jewish New Year and Oktoberfest, it's all gold, red, and amber, and the autumn colors. So I'm going to pour out. Isn't that a darling, darling little cup? And I also have one for you. And it's surprising how these little cups hold so much. And this little set could also be very well a demitasse, strong Turkish coffee after dinner. Give everyone just a little cup. That's customary in Europe, and particularly Italy. Let's try it. Oh, that's wonderful. Wonderful tea. Is yours good? I am going to be working this next week on getting an email on our tea talks so you can communicate with me. And I really hear from a lot of you through text, but I want you to be able to ask a question or feel free to make a comment directly to me or a suggestion. of what you would like to see covered on the tea table. Well, this is a little baby menorah. Isn't it sweet? A little gold menorah. I thought that goes right here on the tea table, just perfect. And then I have a larger menorah that's really beautiful. And I don't have the candles in it right now, but this has 9 and this has 7. And I have something special. Yes, oh boy, he lost his scroll. Let me get that. I have a little rabbi. Isn't that sweet? And he's coming to the tea table today. We are welcoming him for the Jewish New Year. And we have quite a special dessert. I hope you all approve of this. It is a German chocolate cake. I'm going to put it out so you can see it. It has not been cut yet. Whoops, he keeps falling. I think I'll put him here. There. It keeps, has not been cut. And I'll tell you why. This is a birthday cake for my son. And I have a lovely server. And it seems that German chocolate is it's a favorite of young men. Yes. Well, all people, but it seems perfect for this time of year. So I'm saving that to put candles on, of course, and we'll sing happy birthday. Now, as I said, this shawl and my jewels are all kind of bright and flashy and red and gold, but it's because I'm celebrating. And I have a purse that actually matches my scarf. Do you see? It has the red and gold and the blue. I love blue, red, and gold. They're just so wonderful. The deep navy, the deep red, and the deep gold. And I had a music room in a home we lived in, a Victorian home, a historic home we lived in for several years back. And in my music room, my friend had made she was a designer of window coverings. And as a gift to me, well, we traded. I taught her children music and she made my window coverings. Oh my goodness. And we found this fabric. I'll see if I can get it. I have a sample of it around here. That was deep red, almost maroon, deep royal blue, deep gold, and it was embossed velvet like a shield and just so royal. And she made a window covering for above each window, and then we just had white sheers below. And it was in the music room, and I actually used that room as a study also. It was combined library music room. One of the most beautiful combinations I've ever had, and I still have them. And I'm keeping them because they are so, so, so special. And you know, I don't like getting rid of good things that I love. And I know that many of you are that way also. And I find that I like to recycle and reuse my clothing, my purses, my tea sets, and then I don't regret and I don't have to get something else. I have, and it becomes a very special part of my collection. And don't be afraid of that, because people are so throwaway generation. We need things that have character and remind us of past blessings and good experiences. Well, I thought for the tea talk today, I wanted to talk about September again, because I love September. And it does always feel to me like the new year. And we talked about that, going back to school and new notebooks and new leather journals, sweater weather, walking through the leaves, looking at the chilly morning fog and then watch it lift around noon and those gorgeous leaves are turning. We all are seeing it before our eyes. I love September and I do love October also. But I want to thoroughly enjoy this last day, and it looks like the sun is just now beginning to come out. I'm inside today because it was so gray and foggy. I thought I can't be out here. It's just too cold. But it looks to me like it's beginning to brighten, and that's good news. Well, we're listening to Corelli, and he is a great composer. I think I've talked about him before. He is with that group of Pachelbel, Vivaldi, the Italian school that greatly influenced Johann Sebastian Bach. And he took all of that beauty and that, it was a new school of romantic, loving, dramatic notes and combinations of instruments. The violin became really important, and the string quartet emerged out of that. And Bach took that and put it all in his music and combined it, and the rest is history, because then everyone looked to Bach. I'm going to put him here now because I want you to see him. He's very, very special. Well, I really also wanted to say, are you having some festivities? Are you going to have a little gathering at your home for autumn? And it can be an Oktoberfest, it can be a harvest party, it can be well, last Sunday we had a Rosh Hashanah celebration here with a group of friends, and it was so fun. And one of our friends blew the shofar, and it was gorgeous. And this is a time to celebrate and to think and to plan ahead and reflect back, like I said. Sila means pause and think about it. It means to not just rush ahead and do the next thing, but evaluate, how can I do something better? How can I improve it? How can I help someone in a more significant way? And what should I change? That, am I wasting time on certain things? Should I add something else? And we talked about books, and I tell you, I've been reading and I have been loving it. I have felt such a peaceful shalom opening my books and taking time to not just read on my phone, because I love the Google. I love researching on Google. It's fabulous. It's instant. It's helpful. But I had a real experience this week. I have a series of books by Philip Schoff, and he's a church historian from the last century, from the 1800s. He was a German-Swiss theologian that ended up getting an invitation to come to America to a little tiny obscure school. No one knew him. He wasn't, and he had had a very hard life. He didn't even have his father growing up, and his mother had to work so hard to keep the family together in that period of time in Germany. But somehow he got to go to school, and he took theology, and he felt very close to God and wanted to study. And he had a teacher in his school, and I believe he was at Tübingen University in Germany, and his teacher's name was Neander. Now, we've all heard of the Neanderthal man that they found, in the Bavarian, southern Bavarian, Germany woods area. Well, come to find out, that Neander area what actually got its name from two Neander. It's a complicated story. Both of these, the other man was in the 1600s, and he had been Jewish, Joachim Neander, and his original name had been Mendel, and his father changed the name to Neander because it was the Greek form of new and beginnings, and their family had become Christians. And this other Neander, so they became Neander. And so this, okay, I'm going to back up here. In the 1600s, the Neander, he was a very deep person, and he really had a deep love for God and poetry. And he wrote over 60 famous hymns. One of the hymns he wrote is All Creatures of Our God and King. Now, this is in the late 1600s. And he was having a hard time at the school. A lot of the people didn't understand him. And he would go walking in the woods, these beautiful, beautiful Bavarian woods. And the people would see him walking, and they said, we need to name that woods Neander. So they named the woods Neander after him. And this man wrote such beautiful poetry and beautiful songs of praise to God. Johann Sebastian Bach, 100 years later, took many of his lyrics and put them into his oratorio. So you can look this up. So when they found that Neanderthal man, that's why they called it that, because that whole name of Germany is called Neander now. Well, fast forward, this other man I'm talking about, Philip Schoff, who came to America, he had a teacher named Neander, and I'm trying to find out if they were related. I'm sure they were, but this was 100 years later. And this Neander had a love for church history, and he was such a scholar and had done so much research into the original writings of the church fathers. You know, in America, we have our original writings of our founding fathers, right? When we read original writings from John Adams, Thomas Jefferson, George Washington. Well, in church history, the church fathers are the first century, first 3 centuries. It's called early church. And this man, Neander, had researched back and done so much hard work. And this man, Philip Schoff, had studied under him. Well, this man, Neander, died, and his work was not finished. And Philip Schoff, when he went to America, he kept going with the work. And so today, Philip Schoff, he's credited with organizing all of the ante-Nicene fathers, the Nicene fathers, the apostolic fathers. Apostolic means they would have known the disciples. The ante-Nicene, it's before 300, before the Council of Nicaea, and Nicene is after. It's volumes. I have them. My husband has a whole set. We have it upstairs. Well, and I have a set of my own that my advisor and mentor, Dr. Schultz, gave me as a graduation gift. Well, I thought, I am going to read these. I've done research through them, but I've never really started at the beginning and read the full introduction. Well, I'm reading the introduction, telling the story about Philip Schoff, telling his story, and this name Neander came up, and I thought, well, that's interesting. So that's how I looked up. So that's how I had my book, but then I went back and used Google to look up, and I discovered all this insight and wonderful truth about how this church history was documented, because you had early church historians. You had a man named Eusebius, and he's called the first church historian who collected the writings of these church fathers. And then you had Josephus, he's a Jewish historian, and lived during the time of Christ, and he wrote. And then there's Philo. And so we had church historians, but we needed it consolidated and brought all in under one format. And that's what Philip Schoff did. He edited it, and it's just a wonderful collection. And he gave his life to that. And he gave it with love. His study is filled with love. All of these men were. And the first Neander that was in the 1600s, he died when he was 30. And yet he had written 60 hymns that we still have today and we still sing today. They are in our hymn books. And Bach took much of his other writing and, as I said, put it into his oratorios because he had written with such beautiful pathos. Well, the second Neander that Philip Schoff had studied under, he died relatively young too, with very poor health. The first one, I think, had typhus or died of the plague. The second one had poor health, but they left such a contribution. They could have no idea what a contribution they left to scholarship today, because I've taken a lot of church history classes, and everyone looks to Philip Schoff as the authority. All these books you'll read. There's hundreds of church history books, but they're always quoting Philip Schoff. They look to Philip Schoff. He gave his very life, his whole life, to give such a contribution to the world. And I am going to keep reading because I received such blessing just from reading those first 10 or 20 pages of the very first volume. And you can look online and look up Philip Schoff and read about him, and then you look up Neander, Neander, and there'll be two of them come up. And I love making jewel discoveries like this because there is always a story behind a story. Nothing ever happens in a vacuum. Nothing just happens. There is always a mentor. There is a mother. In fact, they said the mother in all of these men's lives was so important to give them that sense of devotion to God and to others, and to make a contribution to our world. And I think it's just really important that we have these people in our lives. I have so many people in church history that I love and I receive so much strength from in all of history. You know, I'm taking a class right now in modern church history, and we were studying, Clara Barton. And she is the beginning of nursing. We just assumed there were always nurses. There were not. She was the beginning. And each of these people, they had to have strength, vision, determination, and the willingness to step out of the boat, step out of the comfort zone, and go forth and help someone else. And that is what is behind all of it. I was also studying the man who was responsible for the Red Cross. Well, the Red Cross kind of came with the Clara Barton movement and the nursing movement. They were side by side. None of this just happens. And there are so many, the man that wrote the great book on economics, that I was just studying him, and Adam Smith, he talked about the fact, laissez-faire, and he is behind that. And his idea was that more people could be blessed if things were directed in a manner where it was fair. And laissez-faire means don't over control. Let people have competition, let people have their creative ideas, and it's beautiful. And you find that these people often had people against them, but they had to stand for what they knew was right. Yes. And when you study even things like the cotton gin that was invented at that time, Eli Whitney, it relieved so much pressure. So many people that had to work so hard, suddenly they didn't have to do those menial tasks. They were free to do something else and produce more. And I just think that as we need to study people that have gone before, just like you and I, that have contributed something to our society, so that we may also be inspired to know that we can contribute something good to our fellow man. And I think that is the key to life. To inspire one another, to use our gifts, our talents, our poetry, our songs, our good words, our kindness. And perhaps there are other ideas, scientific ideas, inventions. Everyone is given a different gift, and only the person that has the gift knows deep inside what that gift is. And I think what I want to say is, don't be afraid to use it. Well, this has been so special, and I hope that you have enjoyed your tea as I have enjoyed mine. Take one more little taste. I know that this time of year is nice for a good spiced tea, isn't it? Yes. Well, I discovered there is a tea shop I found in Lakewood. I think it was the Madam Tea Lady. She had hundreds of different kinds of teas there. And I guess she has 3 shops that sell, she mixes and makes her own teas. Thought it was fascinating. She has a degree from tea school. I'm thinking of going and maybe interviewing her for the tea table. We could all learn a lot. So that's an example of a person who had an idea, had a desire, wanted to do it, and did it. I admire that quality so much. Well, I lost in my house my little click, so I have to stand up and turn off my device. So let's see if I can do that without spilling tea, chocolate cake. Let's move this back. That's the idea. I have a nice tea table here that rolls. Oh, that's nice. That's a good plan. So have a fabulous week and do your best. Do something that you really want to do, that you've always wanted to do, and you just were not quite brave enough to do it. I encourage you, just do it. And God be with you. And I will look forward to seeing you next time.